Rocket League esports has seen a lot of change in just the last 2 years, and along with that, a plethora of new fans and players of the game. If you're new here, you've come at a great time. The competition is just warming up, and Worlds is right around the corner. But with so many different teams and players, it can be easy to be left asking just how we got here. Luckily, I'm here to explain it all. So without further ado, here's a brief history of RLCS. Season 1 came only a year after the game's release, with Worlds taking place in Los Angeles, California. Only Europe and North America were in attendance at this event, each having 4 teams that would fight in a double elimination bracket. While none of the 8 teams at this event are still active today, it might be worth remembering some of these faces for the near future. In the end, Kronovi, Overzero, and Lichinio took home the trophy for IBA power, beating out Flipside Tactics and giving us our first official world champion. NA's reign was short-lived, however, as only 4 months later, EU takes a perfect sweep in Amsterdam. And only 6 months later in LA. It's hard to believe these first 3 seasons took place over the time span equivalent to 1 season today, but that's not to say they weren't as important. For many current day veterans, these were the humble / not so humble beginnings for many seasons to come. 4-time world champion TurboPulso wouldn't even have won his first world championship had he not been called on to sub in season 3. Other notable veterans include the likes of Garrett G, K-Dop, Cuxer, Kronovi, Fairy Peak, Rizzo, Violent Panda, and who could forget... Hey, and maybe this team will be somewhat notable in the future. With Season 4 came a number of format changes, most notably the addition of the Rivals Series, which plays into RLCS and acts as sort of a minor league for those new and upcoming players. And I think we'll be hearing from some of them very soon. Season 4 ended with yet another EU victory in Washington, D.C., giving TurboPulse his second world championship. But you might recognize some of these NA teams, however, as 3 of them are still active today, and as for Cloud9, their legacy has only just begun. Season 5 gave us a bit of an extended off-season, including a number of roster changes from both EU and NA. NA was looking to really bring a fight this season to an ever-dominant EU, and a fight is what they got. For the first time since Season 1, NA had a team in the upper bracket going into Grand Finals, but Dignitas, looking for revenge for their early loss in quarters, bracket reset NRG, and NA was once again on the back foot. And what happens next can only be described as the most iconic moment in RLCS history.
NRG need this immediately. They've got the kick off in their favor. K-Dop tries to clear. It is almost there. It just has hit the floor. Violent Panda puts it a long way, and it's almost there. Justin keeps it alive. TurboPulse is there. Bounces into the corner. NRG still around. Justin is there for the shot. Justin! This is Rocket League! They did it! The Rookie of the Year!
And then they lost.
TurboPulse with it up high. Gets the flick. Turbo! What the fuck?
With the score now at 4-1 in favor of Europe, North America desperately needed to find an answer. But with all 4 of its contending teams getting knocked to the lower bracket early, things weren't looking too good for NA. But one team had other ideas. In one of the greatest lower bracket runs of all time, Cloud9 clawed their way all the way back to the Grand Finals, only to dismantle the defending world champions of Dignitas. And thus, the legacy of Cloud9 was born, and North America reclaimed its pride. For about 6 months at least. Season 7 gave us a whole new region, and along with that, a new format, including groups and a single elimination bracket. This time around, NA came out strong, with 3 teams going into semifinals, but after Renal Vitality made quick work of the former champions, it wasn't long before EU took back its title. In the process of researching for this video, I wanted to know what it was like to get to attend one of these events live in person, and while I've never actually been able to go to one, I got the chance to sit down with somebody who has. Can you summarize your experience in Newark?
Amazing. The longest Mexican wave. So if you go back, there's probably clips somewhere that I can't, or I don't remember where. So you know how like when people do the wave, it's actually called the Mexican wave. It was 18 minutes, and Golden Boy, like we did it like during like one of the final series. It was on Championship Sunday, I believe we did it on winners finals, I think, or lower final. I can't remember. But we went and we just kept going up and down for 18 minutes, and Golden Boy, and we ended up breaking the record during break.
You say record,
Yeah, like
is this like a LAN record, or is this like a world record?
no, actual world record, and like Guinness
Wow,
didn't
okay.
really I believe that we're like mentioned on Wikipedia. So like
really cool.
people turn on their flashlights and we just kept going up and down, up and down, up and
I would
down.
get
Funny
tired
part
after
is,
a little while.
yeah, dude, like so many people felt their abs and thighs just on fire. Like these are people who don't really exercise too much. I know I'm not one myself.
Do you have anything to say about just the environment of this? Was your first LAN, right?
Yes.
As a first time being in a LAN environment, how would you describe like what a LAN environment is? Like not necessarily while players are playing, but just like the environment of being with other like-minded people and people who enjoy the game as much as you do.
So that's a great question, right? I don't really ever watch RLCS with anybody. I've tried getting some people into it. They're just not into it. You know, it is what it is. I was so used to watching it alone in my room, kind of like right now. And I remember because I was watching Leaf, and I'm like off the cuff, convince me why I should go to LAN. And Leaf's like, dude, just go. Literally a congregation of people who love something that you love. So why wouldn't you want to go? And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'ma go. I paid the ticket then and there. I remember in day 2, Justin was outside, right? Because eventually they kick you from inside the venue. And I remember just seeing Justin, like standing there in the middle with his AirPods, just looking at his phone, and just a massive crowd around him. And I just walk up to him, and I'm like, Justin, can I take a quick pic? I do the whole hair guy routine. You could probably put a picture of one of these things. Then after I left, I started seeing more and more kids, like, because it was mainly children around him, right? They're like, oh, can I take a photo? And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, so usually most pros, they're a lot nicer than I realized. Overall, I absolutely loved it. Definitely would recommend again. And I have my own little gimmick with my selfies, you know, but that's a different story.
Season 8 kicks off with the first ever EU to NA roster move, where 3-time world champion TurboPulse has come to play for NRG, and with a seasoned RLCS veteran like Garrett G, along with young superstar Justin, it's no surprise this team shocked the stage in Madrid, defeating the reigning champs of Vitality and taking back the title for North America, which, 2.5 years later, they still hold. While things were going swell for RLCS in early 2020, the entire rest of the world was apparently staying inside, and while most Rocket League players didn't even notice, it did mean no more LANs. In Season 9, all we got was a bit of league play and a bracket for each region, but no worlds. So for a while, aside from a couple community tournaments here and there, we really had no competition to speak for. That is until the announcement of Season X nearly 5 months later. While easy to look over, Season X did change a lot about RLCS. Instead of 2 major seasons each year, we now get 3 major competitions, followed by a championship. Season X also introduced the Swiss system, among several other formats, and sub-tournaments for weekly competitions. Despite not getting any international competition for Season X, we still got to see some good Rocket League out of each region, and I consider it to be a pretty good success overall. In the end, NRG takes the season for North America, Vitality for Europe, True Neutral for South America, and Ground Zero for Oceania, which finally leads us to Season 11. Just kidding. We're changing the name, adding 3 entire regions, revamping the format, putting $6 million up for grabs, and finally, LANs are back. The fall split gave us another look at the Swiss system, and after 3 regional events, we got our first LAN event in just over 2 years. And while there were no fans at this one, we still finally got to see some international competition. In the end, NRG was taken down by BDS, and EU took back its LAN pride from all the way back in Season 8. But it wouldn't last long, however, as the winner split saw G2 Esports taking down Team Queso in quite possibly one of the most unforgiving group stage formats to exist. But Team Queso wouldn't stay down for long, and after internet funny man himself Charlie Moist Critical picked up the team, Moist Esports takes a convincing victory in London for the Spring Split Major. Which finally brings us to today.